Hello, CMS community. It's a privilege to be able to talk to you again. I'm sorry I'm not with you in person this year at Swanwick, but because of shielding, I'm away and wishing you in every success you can have and a delightful conference. I will be joining you online. One of the privilege I've had in working in areas of war and conflict is that I started my aid career at the age of 39, 2 years after becoming a full-time Christian believer. I volunteered with MEDAIR, a Christian relief and development charity, and was initially sent to Kosovo. Here I met a man whose house was bombed. He didn't want a new roof, as he said he only had a daughter and his son had fled to Germany. We said we'd call again in a few days when he told us his daughter had taken her life. We were so sorry and prayed with him. He said, "You see, I told you I didn't need a new roof." I remember thinking then and now, if he had had that roof, she might still be here today. After this, I worked in South Sudan, where I prayed with a woman, farmer, whose newborn was unwell. She needed a few more days in hospital, yet Mum wanted to discharge herself to save her other 6 children, her farm crops, and protect her home. I hoped that her child would recover and she'd know God's providence. I also prayed for a lady who was hemorrhaging post-labour. Our group of volunteers did not have a match for her blood, and we were unsure of the HIV status of the men in the local German aid building project. I was not sure if it was right that we let her die, but I prayed for her and her child to know God. A few years later, I worked in northern Uganda and experienced a road accident where a driver reversed over a child in a dark village as she ran behind the car, as he was the man who gave sweets. He then parked and gave his keys to his colleague, knowing he too would be killed. Sure enough, the child's father and other village men came with spears and killed him. The next morning, we received 2 bodies, both dead, a father of 6, aged 30, and a 3-year-old child. I was required to do a post-mortem and police certificate of death and prayed last rites over these 2 sad accidental deaths. As the father said to others when he was arrested, a life for a life, in their cultural belief, where I felt it was a tragic loss because we don't believe that in our faith. Conflict is tough. I worked in war zones for 4 years and then in anti-violence against women work for the last 17 years. That it was always heartbreak, yet always joy and an opportunity to share my faith. As I met a village in northern Uganda who had never seen white people till the week before I arrived, I joined a trip one Sunday. I shared my testimony through a translator and 30 people came for prayer. All of them were naked except for a few loincloths, and they came for healing. I prayed in English and they would be healed of visible skin conditions, tumours, worms, fractures and stunted growth. Another Sunday I went to a church in rural Uganda and a mute girl's brother asked for prayers and the pastor asked me to pray. So I knelt in the dirt floor and put my hand to her throat. 2 hours later, on the walk home, she talked to me. Her first ever words were thank you. In Pakistan, 40 young rural Muslim girls arrived for 4 years nurse and then midwifery training, and all became believers after daily devotions and evening Bible studies, which I joined in and helped with, all in Urdu. One day, whilst I was training as a basic midwife in northern Pakistan, a baby died before she was born. I was told to put the baby in a bag ready for burial. Yet I was unsure in this culture as they would be beliefs that the mother had given birth to a monster. The girl was perfect in all her body, 10 fingers, 10 toes, so I washed her as usual, and as I would do with a living baby, dressed her, prayed her into the kingdom, and wrapped her in a shawl, and presented her to the mum and 2 grandmothers. There they grieved and cried out and ululated. The burial would be later, and 6 hours later, indeed, I wrapped that baby in a shroud for burial. Yet knowing that the woman had not been rejected for failing to deliver a live baby, all was well, and God willing, she would be back 9 months later and give birth to a live child. In northern Nigeria, I was asked, where was my husband, my father, my brother, my son, my uncle? And I had none. They said, that's really sad. I said, I had Jesus in my heart. In an Orthodox Muslim country, that was a dangerous thing to say, but it came from my heart. Matron State started to sing hymns she said she'd learnt from Christian mission school, and all was well, at least with the hot debate that was following anyway. When there is conflict, people are desperate for hope and God. I found 20 people hiding from the war, Myanmar refugees, in our safe house in Thailand one evening, and gave them our oranges and biscuits and prayed for each of them. They had fear in their eyes. Again, we did not speak a shared language, yet they understood me as I held my cross and said to them I was praying for peace and safety. I have seen much horror and the evidence of violence in Africa and Asia, and actually across the UK in the last 21 years, also in the US and Australia. God has protected me, and I have grown, healed, and bold in his protection. My work of anti-female genital mutilation with 28 Too Many was born of witnessing a girl who survived rape by armed militia aged 10. I also met a girl in Nigeria whose mother died of HIV/AIDS, and she had FGM to take her mother's job as she was not a woman until she was cut. Rather than be horrified in these stories, look for the work of Jesus working through me in each situation. I volunteer in palliative care with adults in Marie Curie and children at Noah's Ark hospices, and in pastoral mental health work post-pandemic in my church. It is in the same work, binding the wounds, bringing hope, listening and giving prayer and solace. If you want to know more stories, look for my book, Overcoming My Fight Against FGM, that was published this June. Next year, God willing, I will attend in person and sign copies of your books. My last 21 years, 10 with CMS, have enabled me to work with many people on the edges of society. My 3 mini breaks this summer to Glasgow, Bristol and Belfast led me into conversations with the lonely, lost, prejudiced, hopeless and addicted. My calling this last 16 years has been dedicated to changing hearts around gender equality, minds, beliefs around harmful practices, and moving from faithless depression to empowerment via informed rights-based knowledge. FGM practicing communities know more about the fact that it is a social norm. Over the 11 years of our work, we have now made an impact of a 10% reduction in 10 countries over 10 years, and have also completed 28 country reports in addition to 28 legal reports, 3 thematic reports, and now are just about to publish 32 FGM in Europe reports. The work is not complete, as a girl is still cut globally every 5 seconds, yet our initial work is done thanks to your generous donations and prayers. Please now pray for our board, to wisely decide its future strategy and focus, the future headship of our charity post-2022 as I move into a new era of Global Senior Research Advisor with another organisation, my other ministry on the edge of palliative care and mental health issues post-pandemic, and my health and that of my team. Thank you for listening today.